Hey folks, Colton Woods here with Colton Woods Horsemanship. And well, guys, guess what? We know a lot of y'all are working from home right now, and that means that you guys are sending us your questions that you have going on with your horses because you're probably increasing your screen times on your phones, your computers. And that's what we're doing. We're answering some questions for y'all. Linda sent in a question. She's got somebody at her facility, whether it's a boarder or a client, and they are having a lot of trouble getting this horse to jog off next to them. He's an 11-year-old quarter horse based on what she told me, and they can have him leading next to him, and they can get him to trot next to somebody and jog off if someone flags the horse from behind. But if they go to try to jog the horse off by the person increasing their speed, the lead rope will go tight because the horse will not keep up. And oftentimes they find that when the horse hits the end of that halter, that he'll brace and he'll stop, and sometimes he'll walk forward, but other times he will actually brace more into the pressure and might even back away from the person, therefore pulling the lead rope towards them and increasing the pressure on the lead. So they're a little bit baffled. They're like, how can we get this horse to jog off next to us without having to flag him from behind? And there's a couple of ways that we can go about doing this, Linda, and anybody out there, particularly you guys for the Extreme Mustang Makeover group, you guys are going to have to jog those horses off next to you here in about 100 days. So this is a really applicable question for a lot of folks right now. And frankly, all of our horses need to be able to jog next to us anyway, because what happens if we're leading them and we need to hurry up? Maybe something dangerous is happening and we need that horse to go ahead and move off with us, not hit the end of the lead rope, brace, stop, back up, maybe potentially end up in harm's way. We need to be able to have those horses rate our energy, rate us, and follow us forward when we need to. And if they end up hitting the end of the lead rope, we need our horses to understand that they come off of that pressure, and that's where the release of pressure is. That pulling back can be an instinctual thing for the horses because they can sometimes feel claustrophobic. And frankly, it has been proven that, for example, if you take a hold of a lead rope and it's running and it takes pressure on the halter, and that halter's running across the back of your horse's jaw like it should be, when you make that pressure, if that horse pulls back, it's not just going to lock them in the pole, because a lot of times you see those horses, they stick their heads out, right? They'll stick their heads out and they'll lock up in the stifles. That's why if anybody's ever seen a horse that is tied up and pulls back, that their head comes up and they get to running backwards, but because they're tied, they can't go anywhere usually. And then their hind feet end up coming up underneath them because they're pushing with those hind feet and they're locking up in the stifles. And so that causes tension all through their back. It changes their balance point. And frankly, honestly, we don't need tension, we need relaxation. And we don't need that tension. We need them to understand how they can step off of this pressure. So let's go ahead and get to it. How will we do this? Well, one of the ways is that I don't particularly like to necessarily just pull on the horses. I will teach them, I will go through a process where they learn that if they feel that pressure, that they need to move off of it. But in my groundwork series that is available right now on YouTube, on our website, which we can link below, all this stuff's free right now, guys. That won't be for long, though, because we're working on something pretty special that's going to be awesome and it's going to bring you guys a lot of value, is that there's an exercise that I call direct and drive. And that is that you send your horse out next to you. And one of the most common things that people do, which locks their horses up, is they go to send their horses, say I'm going to send my horse to the left here, send him to the left. They will go and they will pull that lead rope tight until their horse's head does this. I don't do that because I want them to follow the feel. So I send my arm out to the left, and then I take my flag, and then I say, hey, you feel that? I might take it just tight enough that they feel the halter pressure, but I don't pull on them because that's going to brace them up. That's going to lock their body up. We don't want that. What we want them to do is that we send that lead rope off to the left, and if we take a little bit of pressure in it so they can kind of feel it, then we flag them. We use that outside leg, we use that flag, and say, hey, you follow that feel, right? Just when you're riding them, if you're trying to turn a horse to a certain direction, you can't pull them that way. You can pull them off balance, right? And you can put a brace in their body because they're going to have to get re-steadied. But you open that door, you open that rein and say, hey, follow that. And if they don't, then you have to add energy, which often comes from the outside leg. So it's no fluke that all this stuff is connected. So I send my horse off, might have a little bit of tension, just a little bit of pressure on that halter rope so they feel that there is that sensation. And then I say, hey, move your feet this way. And that is how the pressure is released. That is how I would start to teach horses to be tied and how to come off this halter pressure. But I don't take that lead rope and then pull it wickedly tight to where they're really braced up and then try to add it, because they're already locked. And that you send them into a mental state of mind that is going to be more survival based. It's going to send them into the sympathetic nervous system for some horses, when we need them in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is a more relaxed state of mind where they can actually learn. So I do extend that hand, take a little pressure if they don't move their feet. And ideally, in your groundwork, you're getting them to move just by opening this. But early on, you can teach them that when this pressure happens, that you move your feet that way. As your groundwork gets better and better, then you're also preparing your horses to tie. And then I have a series of exercises I would do to teach these horses to tie, which would teach them that if they do feel this pressure from pulling back that way, that they've already understand how to come into that pressure and find the release there. The release pressure is not running through a bunch of pressure. It is moving back up into where, yielding to the pressure behind the jaw and saying, hey, I can come out of this. Now, what I would do to help these horses jog off next to me, one, I get that groundwork pretty good just on the basics, and then I might start walking with them in a bigger circle. So they get comfortable with me walking next to them. And as my circle gets bigger, they'll probably be trotting around. So I'm gonna walk a pretty big circle. They might be trotting around me, and I'm walking along next to them in this circle. I'm still doing my groundwork. My shoulder and my body position is the same way. So that gets them comfortable doing that. But what I've also created here is I've taught them that when that halter comes tight and they don't go, that I'm gonna use the flag. Then I'll take them down to the fence, and I'll be walking along the fence, and I'll change my body position, raise my energy, bring my body position up, and say, hey, follow, I'm gonna start trotting off. As soon as I feel that slightest halter pressure, if I don't feel them come forward, I've got my flag in my inside hand. So for example, for this, guys, the door would be my horse here. We're coming straight at y'all. I would raise my body position up, go forward. If the horse doesn't follow my energy forward and I start to feel that halter come tight, I'm going to take my flag in my outside hand and drive them forward. It's the direct and drive exercise, except for right now I'm next to them. I do this along a fence so that they don't get to fishtailing out, okay? And you don't have to have them squeezed up against the fence. You're just helping create a channel for them to move, all right? And that's how I would start to set it up. But I always work it with where my horses are at. Are they mentally comfortable? They can trot around me in pretty big circles and go that way. You can trot around big circles and start jogging next to them while they're trotting around and then come back. I'm just building comfortability with them as they're moving at a rate of speed, and I start to bring my energy up. And then I want them to not just be comfortable with my energy coming up, because speed is emotion sometimes with horses, but I also want them to then follow my energy forward. Just like if we're riding, we want them to, if we're at a walking pace in our seat, we need them to walk. If we go up to a trot, we don't want them to get afraid. We want them to follow us into that trot and their feet follow. It's the same thing here on the ground. I have a nice cadence walk in my body. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna walk. I bring my energy up and say, hey, we trot. And as I go, if they don't go and I feel them get a little bit of pressure on this, I'm not gonna pull on them, because then they'll brace and it'll make it worse. Just the slightest little halter pressure, come back with the flag and say, hey, here's energy, because it'd be like, hey, go forward. If they don't go forward off your seat, you close your leg. Same thing, and off they go. So that is how I would handle it. You can certainly do this with someone flagging from behind, but you want to wean this onto the responsibility of the person handling the horse, which might mean that you just take the flag from the other person that's standing behind and you give it to the person that is actually working with the horse. And then you start to shorten that window. That horse eventually will go the horse will go from not trotting next to him to saying, hey, I need a little bit of flag, to then following the person's body forward. All right. So that's how I would go about doing this. This is how I would work with a horse to teach them to trot next to me. I've done the Extreme Mustang Makeover events, and that's how I've taught my horses to do this. And you can do this fairly early on with these horses. It's a really good skill to have. If you have to have a vet out and you have to do a lameness exam, or you're doing a pre-purchase exam, your horses need to know how to trot off. All right. So anyway, guys, that's Colton's horsemanship. If y'all have questions because you're quarantined to your house, be sure to send us your questions. Send them in the messages below. We're going to be bringing you guys some videos here. That way we can help y'all along with your horses. That is what we love doing. And we got some pretty exciting announcements coming up. So y'all stay tuned. Pay attention to the Facebook page. Pay attention to the Instagram, YouTube, and all that good stuff. We'll keep you posted. All right, y'all. Y'all take care.